Hello everybody, we've been blessed by Blizzard presence finally after a long time of absence and the old map being, well, pretty much very old. We have finally some new maps, 5 new maps in fact. The new map pool for Ranked has arrived on the ladder and I'll try to get you through some of these maps. This is going to be pretty much my first look on the maps. I've played a couple of games on them overall in practice, but I'm not too familiar. But maybe we can find some details and just overall look how the maps are going to be played out. So yeah, stay tuned and I'll show you what do we have in store. So the ladder map has been updated. If we take a look at the maps, we have new map Berlingrad, we have old map Blackburn, we have old map 2000 Atmospheres. Well, Blizzard wouldn't be Blizzard if they didn't screw up something. I mean, they just wanted to update the map pool, but in the meantime, they still left Beckett Industries, which was confirmed that it's going to be removed from the map pool, but somehow it's still in the map pool, so we'll scratch that. Fun fact, they also removed Archon mode somehow, some way. By adding the maps, they removed Archon mode. I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, but yeah, this is not the topic of this video. I think it's just something funny. And then we have new map Curious Minds, Glittering Ashes, Pride of Altaris, and Hardwire. So, alright, let's jump into the first map. Let's try Berlingrad first. Alright, so we're loading into the Berlingrad. It has 33 seconds rush distance, which in theory is the shortest rush distance overall in the map pool. If we take a look in here, it just goes through the middle. We have this cool feature by with the minerals in the middle of the map, kind of blocked with the rocks, so we have to go like around to reach to the natural. The reason why I chose Terran is I like to check for the Reaper spots, and I think it's quite important to check for them. This map has a lot of expansions overall, but they are kind of on the outside of the map, right? They are not closing in into the middle, so basically we are going around the map to expand. And I think this map is overall quite open. If we take a look at the third bases, they are quite far away from the natural base. And well, that kind of indicates that it's quite hard to expand, because if you expand to the top, well, the opponent can come from the bottom, right? And there's like quite a long distance between the actual base and the actual space that you need to defend. As a Protoss player, I think that can be quite annoying to deal with. Another thing, there are also, of course, a lot of bushes and rocks overall. You can open up the map a bit by destroying these rocks, and it opens up the map quite a bit, especially if you knock down the rocks in the middle and then take off the middle patches from the middle. The rush distance becomes even shorter, and it's going to be quite an aggressive map overall. The Reaper jump spot, I could see only one on this map, which is in here. You can kind of see the Reaper jump spots actually on the maps. Most of the time they have this indicator that can provide information. This is a Reaper jump spot, so you will not get surprised, like they cannot jump from here, well, this is easy to spot. Same on the other side of the map. And if I'm not mistaken, you can kind of wall it off with 3 big buildings. Not necessarily with just one building, because this is like an awkward spot. So if I'm not mistaken, you can do it like this. So this is going to be like your pylon, your gateway, and oh, that's not the way. This is the way. Pylon, gateway, and cybercar. I think this should be somewhat safe. Let's try it out. I have not tested the wall-ins, I'm not gonna be lying to you, but I think it looks like a 3 building wall off. Let's see. This should be blockable. Yeah. So it is blocked, so the Reaper cannot jump in. So this will be like a pylon, gateway, cybercore, well, any other way. So the Reaper can jump in here freely. On the other side of the map, it's going to be pretty much the same. So like a pylon from the bottom side and a big building and a big building, right? So you can block it off. Let's see, if the Reaper can go into the natural, there's one more spot in here, which I'm pretty sure is blocked by just a singular building, because it's a very narrow path. But yeah, in any case, you were wondering, the Reapers can actually jump into the natural, so do be careful about that. You can block it off with a pylon or a supply depot if you're a Terran, and the Reaper will not be able to jump in. But of course, early into the game, the Reaper has some maneuverability on this map. Any other features on this map that are worth mentioning? Not really. I think it's a fairly standard map overall. Not too many crazy things. No slow zones, no fast zones. There's fair amount of dead space, but not really much, to be honest. Like between the base and the main base, like there could be an idle medivac, or you can idle your oracles and so on versus Zerg. Here's somewhat of a dead space, but the queens are able to shoot the air units from here anyway. So I would consider this a fairly good standard map, but I wouldn't say this is the best map overall. So this is Berlingrad. Oh, actually, I can do one more thing. It's the wall off overall onto the natural. You can do it with 3 big buildings. You cannot really do it with 2 big buildings because it's going to leave a gap. So yeah, if you're a Protoss player, it's basically, you know, 3 big buildings. I think in all of the new maps, the wall off is going to be created with 3 big buildings. So it's not too tricky to do, but yeah, just to mention it. So yeah, pylon and then 3 big buildings, and you're pretty much nicely walled in. And there's of course going to be a nexus close by. So yeah, this is Berlingrad. Let's jump into the next map. Okay, so the next map is going to be Curious Minds. In my opinion, it's the smallest map in the map, or at least it feels really small. In fact, it's so small that it makes my thing in between the legs look big. So, if you know what I mean. If you're looking for like aggression, this is the map that you're going to be looking for. Again, rush distance is fairly quick. You can block the natural of the Zerg base quite easily with a probe. Even after a pylon, I'm fairly certain you don't need to like send the probe immediately. The distance is quite small. If I'm not mistaken, it's 34 seconds. And again, the bases are kind of difficult to take, in my opinion. For a Protoss player, I'm mostly talking about Protoss like perspective on these maps. This is like the triangle base, and this is the, well, linear base, but you're kind of defended with a ramp and a fairly small choke that can be defended with even within a shield battery range. So if we're taking a third base, I would probably recommend this linear base, because if you take this base, the triangle one from the top side or the bottom side, it's fairly open. It has this kind of a, I don't know, a squarey thing. It's not necessarily a square, a sphere, I'm not sure. Well, this thing that kind of blocks the armies, right? So like you have this choke and like this choke, but it's still fairly wide open. So I would not recommend taking this base as a third, especially since it's just such a small map that you're going to be attacked fairly easily, and there's another attack path from the bottom side. There's a Reaper spot, of course, that you can block off. 3 big buildings, again, there's no easy way to block it off. You need 3 big buildings. It's going to be, wait, I think it's this way. Again, or am I wrong? It's this and this, I think. Like a pylon, big building, and it should be somewhat safe. Don't mind me, we are just testing the map, okay? So this is the Reaper jump spot. You can kind of wall it off. There's no Reaper jump spot to the natural other than from like the very edge on the ramp, which is again already a position that you're going to be defending. So it really doesn't make you much difference, since you should be, you know, keeping a unit over here for a Reaper with an adept or a stalker, and it's again kind of in range. Wall off, you know, again, as I said on the previous map, is going to be 3 big buildings. Big features on this map, Xel'Naga Towers. They are gathering a lot of vision for you. Again, because of the map size, it really gives you a lot of vision. I'll show you once this probe arrives. You will see pretty much, well, half of the map from the top side. You can see it covers all the ground paths to your base that you want to be defending. So let's say you're taking the linear base, I would absolutely recommend taking this watchtower, because it gives you so much information, and it's somewhat defended by these, you know, the smoke things that deny vision. So it's not that easy to get this watchtower without getting in trouble. So if you have some army in here and your opponent wants to get this vision, you can quite easily defend this. Same thing on the bottom side. Not a lot of dead space, somewhat similar to Berlingrad, I would say. Space between the base and the main base has, you know, a lot of potential for like drops, oracle, idling, and so on for future. From the other side onto the natural, there's not much airspace. You cannot really fly in safely with an oracle or a medivac or anything. You can kind of keep it idle in here, but it's again reachable by queens. So I would not recommend idling your units in here. 3 big buildings of a wall off, quite easily to do. Well, I misplaced my pylon, but it doesn't matter. You can do it like this, and there's space to cover in here. I think there's even a small space in here that is not reachable, which is nice. So another part of a wall off. You can see this red square. That's pretty cool. I actually didn't notice that before. So in case your wall is being breached, you have another space to wall off. Taking a fourth base, I would say, on this map is quite difficult to do. It's pretty far away. Again, I would recommend taking this linear base as a fourth, not necessarily the open path. However, it's possible to take this. I think it's just very difficult to defend. However, if you take the linear base and you are controlling this watchtower, you're kind of defending two bases at the same time, which is nice because you get a lot of vision, you know, from the top and from the bottom side of the map. I'm not sure if there's any other specific features. No gold bases, no reach Vespin geysers to be seen. You can destroy the rocks in the middle. They're kind of covered by the smoke again, but if you open up the rocks, the rush distance is even smaller. Kind of similar to Light Shade, I would say, but the space is much higher. Much wider, I should say. But they're kind of covered by the high ground as well. Most of the time, you're going to be fighting, I think, in this space or this space if you're walking across the map and your opponent is walking across the map as well. Defensive features, I would say, well, shield battery here, and you should be good to go. This space is somewhat similar to Oxide, where, well, you're going down the ramp from both of your sides, so it's very hard to defend this area. I would much rather recommend having some army here and some army here to defend. Going down the ramp and trying to defending down the ramp is going to be difficult for you to do because the opponent is going to get a much wider arc and it's going to be just easier to attack. So I think that's going to be all the features of Curious Minds: 2 Reaper jump spots, watchtowers, and, well, pretty much a small map. So let's get into the next map. Alright, the next map is going to be Glittering Ashes. This is the second biggest map in this map pool, and I think this is map really worth talking. It has a rush distance of 39 seconds, and that's a lot, to be honest. But the very first thing that comes to mind when I watch this map is the amount of bases that are available. Most of the time, the maps have much less bases than this. This is 18 bases in total. Like, this is going to have a lot of money in it if it comes to the late game, which might actually produce somewhat of interesting games if the games go long. I don't think this map really favors, like, let's say, the campy style, you know, just defensive style, when you're hiding behind the, you know, shield batteries, spores, and spines, because the expansions kind of go forward, right? We could see in the other side of other maps that the maps were kind of going around the map, right? Like in here, but there are lots of bases that are putting yourself in danger if you're expanding. They're going into the middle of the map. Natural, fairly easily taken. Again, a wall of 3 big buildings. You can kind of do a 2 building wall, but it's not ideal. It's somewhat similar to 2000 Atmospheres, but if you're not familiar with 2 building wall, I would not recommend. I would obviously recommend doing a 3 building wall, which is fairly easy to do. I think on all these maps it's, again, not tricky. Kind of 2 Reaper jump spots. This is the first jump spot, but, you know, it's, again, similar to Curious Minds, where the defensive position should be not that much different. You're defending this spot with a Reaper jump spot. You can easily even wall it off with a pylon if you want to. The Reaper is going to be jumping from this here, where you have this, like, yellow arrow. There's a ramp. The Reaper cannot jump in through here. There's a blockade, and there's a big Reaper jump spot from the bottom side of your main, and, well, on the bottom side, it's on the top side of the main. You can see these big red arrows. It's going to be a 3 big buildings wall, but I think it's not really recommended. It's really putting your buildings in danger. I would recommend on this map doing a Reaper wall of like this, so a gateway here and a cybernetics core here. That means the Reaper cannot really jump around freely, and they have to go from through this area over here with the Reaper if they want to scout your tech buildings and so on. Third bases, again, quite far away from each other. The triangle base is somewhat closer than the linear one, but I think the linear one is somewhat safer because it's somewhat further away from the attack path of your opponent. You can quite easily have a shield battery here and defend your natural base. However, if you take this base, it's also possible to have shield batteries from the natural, like somewhere in here or here. Here is going to be outside of the Nexus range, but you're going to be defending this area fairly nicely. but there's no actually direct path in here. So the direct path to you is from this side and from this side. So if you're going to be defending this position, it's not that convenient to you. So I would recommend probably taking the linear base on this map. Fourth base, probably this one. If I would have to guess, if there's an easy access to the fifth base in here or in the middle of the map if you're feeling frisky. Airspace, I think there's much more airspace than on the other side of the map. Not in the natural space, but you can actually park in here, or Oracle, or Medivacs, or whatever. I think it should be still in Queen range, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong in here. There should be just enough space, actually. I think if you can park in here, I'm not sure if the queens should be able to grab you, but you can park your units here behind the main base. This is in no range, so it's a pretty good map to go for air, for Oracle, for Phoenixes, to keep your units safely behind the main and continuously harass your opponent. Middle of the map, kinda like light shade. We can see the smoke. And the high ground, I think it's fairly common at the moment for this feature. Fairly large map, as I said, 39 seconds of rush, and I think there are many paths to be attacked from, many paths to take as an army. So be careful how you are going to be moving your army around, because you might miss your opponent's army if you're not scouting well enough, and it can lead into the awkward situations. We have path from here, and so on. So a lot of base ready situations, a lot of different attack paths that you're going to be in danger of. Same for your opponents, plenty of chartlots, counterattacks possibilities, maybe adept run-bys, and so on. Overall, I would say this map is one of the best from the new maps. I think it has a lot of potential. It's quite big, and I am curious how it's going to be looking like in actual ranked games, in tournament games, because there are so many expansions, and the more expansions there are, I think the better it is for the Zerg, because they expand faster. They're going to be taking over the map a bit faster than you, but it might lead into some interesting games, because again, there's like a lot of attack paths, so it's not going to be as easily to defend all these expansions from the Zerg's perspective. Any other features? Well, obviously there are some rocks. Most of the time on all the maps there are rocks that are blocking the paths that are going to be opened up later into the game, and it will open up even different, attack paths for your opponent or for yourself. Keep your creep spread good as a Zerg player, and keep the creep spread low if you're against a Zerg player, because on this map I think creep is fairly easy to do. You're going like down the ramp most of the time, so there's not a lot of bad things to happen with the creep, quite easily to spread. From the Terran perspective, maybe some liberation zones are easily to do. There's some airspace, but it's fairly standard. Widowmine drops can be quite scary in here as well, as the Medivacs have somewhat of a safe flight path overall to the natural and to the main base. It's not easily interruptible. You can have some units in here if you want it not to be parked between the main base and in this airspace. So this was Glittering Ashes, lots of bases, fairly large map, good standard map. That's how I would describe it. And yeah, I'm curious how the games are going to be looking like at this. So Glittering Ashes. The next map, and the second last new map, is going to be Hardwire. First thing that comes to mind is again the amount of bases in here. It's 16 bases in total. However, it's still 2 bases less than on the previous map. Reaper jump spots, again, one in the main base, quite a large one. You need 3 big buildings to defend this. The main is quite open as well when it comes to the Reaper jump spots. You need to be careful not to let the Reaper in. However, the ramp is quite narrow, but again, for the 3 big buildings wall off, it's fairly easy to do. Lots of airspace behind the main. Again, good for oracles, good for medivacs harassment. You can keep your units safe, and you can attack the natural here or the main base quite safely. However, there's some space before you reach the middle line. I think it's a fairly uncommon thing to have so much space behind the middle line. It's not very common. So if you are going to be dropping in with a Warp Prism or an Oracle, be prepared that the units can be already in position before you reach the middle line. Let me do a very quick wall off. Very easy to do. in the natural base. 3 bases, quite easily taken. I would say again go for the linear base instead of a triangle one. It's further away and closer to your opponent. If you take a look at the path of the probe it's going to be taking, it's quite large. I think it's 39 seconds the rush distance overall. And there's no actual middle smoke like on the previous map, so you're going to be avoiding a scouting pattern. So if you're arriving from the if you're spawning on the bottom side, you're going to be scouting from the right side in here. So, and if you're spawning on the top side, like I'm here, your probe is going to be going from the left side. So if you're scouting at the same time, the workers are actually going to be avoiding each other. So keep that in mind if your opponent is actually trying to hide something from you. The rocks are blocking the direct path to the triangle base. Once the rocks are down, the map is really wide open and quite short, to be honest. And again, a lot of different attack paths to go from. Bases actually move somewhat forward into the map. This base in particular kind of reminds me of somewhat of overgrowth for the older generations. It's a bit in the forward. However, if the minerals would be like somewhere in here, that would be much more overgrowthy than if it would be a gold base. So basically it's a different base, but kind of reminds me of of overgrowth. Fairly standard map. I don't think there are any special features about this, other than, well, the rocks in the middle, but it's not really special. Just fairly standard big map. I would say we will be seeing a lot of this map. I would not say this is an instant veto for any of the races, but maybe the base layout and just the difficulty of securing these bases maybe will be something to consider in your veto process. For now, I would say fairly standard map and really not much to talk about it. Fairly standard. And the last map is going to be Pride of Altaris, the largest map, and I think the largest map we had in a map pool in a long time, and this might be a problematic. I think there's a lot of points to discuss in this map overall. Yeah, Reaper jump spot into the main base, well, 3 big buildings. Again, we kind of see the pattern, right, of the Reaper jump spot. It's usually 3 big buildings for the Protoss to block, and the Terran always has some kind of jump spot to get some scouting information. The natural is much more wide open, but there is a ramp going into it, so it's kind of blockable. But again, there's a little small jump spot that I was not aware of when I was playing, and it kind of lost me the game. So be wary about this jump spot in here. It's kind of hidden. You think it's just a map feature, but the Reaper can actually jump in through here. So keep that in mind. It's 40 seconds rush distance. There's only 1 watchtower in the middle of the map, but the map is really big. It gives some maneuverability for the Terran. There's some places to attack from. If you have like 2 separate armies that you can attack from the Protoss player, and it's kind of difficult to defend. But because of this of the size of the map, it's actually not that easy to do, and I think there's plenty of spots that you need to be wary of as a Protoss player. It's very hard to control this map as a Protoss player, I feel like. There's plenty of spaces where you can be attacked from, and the expansions are kind of far away from each other without an easy defensive spot. So like the main base and the natural base are fairly easily defended because you have a ramp into the expansion, but taking a 3rd base is already quite a nuisance. You can see the triangle base is pretty much the safest one to take. It has a ramp leading up to you, but it's far away that you kind of need to be exposing yourself. So if you're defending, if there's an access in here, I would recommend getting a pylon here and maybe a battery here. So then the Terran or your opponent is kind of forced to attack you up the ramp. However, the ramp is actually so large that it doesn't really make much of a difference. It just kind of gives you the high ground advantage, but there's still a fair amount of space to be fighting in here. If you would be wanting to take a linear base, there's some rocks to be easily to make the expansions a little bit more easily defended. However, you can be outmaneuvered if you're going to be attacked from this side. So I would recommend taking this base. However, I think both bases have some advantages and disadvantages. If you're going to be taking this base, the linear base, you're more vulnerable to drops into your main base, which main base kind of is small, I would say. for a big map like this, it's fairly small. You cannot really put a lot of buildings, and if you're putting a lot of tech buildings, they are mostly on the right side. The left side is fairly small, and there's not much stuff that you can put in here. And the natural is quite small as well, so I feel like this map can have some issues with the late game when it comes to the main base position. If you have your base in a nicely placed all buildings, you can fit some of them, but overall be careful how you place your buildings so you don't get blocked by your own units if you're going to be defending this main base. Airspace. Not much airspace overall, however, this space is actually flyable in here. And if I'm not mistaken, the stalkers cannot really reach that. So if you're going from the very edge, somewhat similar to Romanticide, where you can actually fly behind the natural. So be careful about this position. Middle of the map is not very often used. I would say most of the time you're going to be attacked like from this side and this side. And the middle of the map is kind of controlled by other races. As a Protoss player, you are not going to be taking control of this watchtower fairly often, I would say. It's so far away from any defensive spot, and it doesn't, like, it would be obviously very good to keep this Xel'Naga tower active for you, but it's mostly not going to happen. If once you've taken the 4 bases, I think taking another bases is not that hard, because you kind of, like, if you're defending this spot and then this spot, it feels like it's not really that far away from each other. Once you have enough army, it should be good. I'm again a bit worried about Zerg in here, because the base this map has 18 bases again, so it might come for a late game very often. And I would say the issue in here is it's pretty good for camping, unlike other maps, I think, because there are plenty of ramps and like chokes to be attacked from, and because of the size of the map. So I'm a bit worried that the best option for the Protoss would be to camp on this map and not necessarily move out, because of the Protoss army being, quite slow, and it's very you're making yourself very, very vulnerable for counterattacks and counterattacks pretty much, and base rates. So I would say pretty much just stay defensive on this map and you should be good to go. It's one of the maps that might be the most controversial, I think. This and Berlingrad are the maps that I would say are the most non-standard. Even though they all look somewhat standard, they don't have any crazy features. I would be keeping my eye on both of these demos. So this is Pride of Altaris for you. The largest map, somewhat standard, but the largest, and yeah, keep an eye for any kind of counterattacks and so on. One last thing I wanted to show you guys is 2000 atmospheres, and we were supposed to get an updated 2000 atmospheres. That's what we were told in the Blizzard news. So I have not turned on 2000 atmospheres yet myself, and I want to see if I'll be able to spot any kind of difference on this map. Alright, so we were supposed to get an update on 2000 atmospheres. Oh, I think it has to be the ramp, right? I think it's a bit wider than it was before, but I could be wrong. Is there any other feature that I'm missing? You had this jump spot before. We had this airspace before. Maybe it's a bit smaller? Let's see, I want to see the wall off. I'm fairly certain that it's slightly wider, but I could be wrong about it. No, I think it's the same. I do the same wall off. So what is the actual update in here? We have the rocks. We always had the rocks. Alright, I mean, I cannot spot the difference at the first glance, so if you know what the update is on 2000 atmospheres, do let me know in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed this small first look overview of the first of the new ranked maps. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Good luck on the ranked with the new maps. Take care, guys. Bye bye.